they're everywhere.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu anna kullu Rasulullah, ashhadu anna Muhammadar Rasulullah. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. La ilaha illallah. In the name of Allah, most gracious and most merciful. All praise is due to the Almighty God, the Beneficent and the Merciful. We give praise and thanks to God for all that He gives us, for all we do not get from Him, and for the things that we give to others. I recognize God's creation and the different religions, and so I greet my brothers and sisters who are Christian with the greetings of peace. Peace be unto you. To my Hindu brothers and sisters, Namaste. To my Rastafarian brothers and sisters, Jah peace and Jah love. To my Muslim brothers and sisters and all other denominations, the greetings of peace in the Arabic language. Assalamu alaikum. Brothers and sisters, as we still continue in this month of Ramadan, I find it very important to touch on some of the subjects that are important to us as Muslims, and I want to believe important to all believing men and women. There are so many different aspects of fasting, and so we realize what God has said, that fasting gives us a better body physically and helps us mentally to concentrate and spiritually to understand, and as well to be tolerant, to be merciful, and to be more forgiving in this month. We are also able to identify ourselves with many of the brothers and sisters who are hungry in the world and who are thirsty, because during the day when we are fasting and we are hungry and we are thirsty, we can then imagine what young children in other parts of the world who are hungry and starving and who are forced to have Ramadan every month of their lives because they are not capable of feeding themselves and quenching their thirst. In the Quran, Allah says, the mother of Jesus, she said, "Verily I have vowed a fast to Allah, most gracious. I will therefore not speak this day to any human being." So here we have another act of fasting. Here is Mary saying that she's not going to refrain from food and drink. This is in the Quran, Surah Maryam, chapter 19, verse 26. Here is Mary saying that she is going to fast. She's vowing a fast to Allah. But her way and her method of fasting is that she will not speak to any human being for the whole day. Why I'm saying that is to show that there are various aspects of fasting. It's not that we have to fast from food and drink alone, but as Mary is saying here in the Quran, that her fasting is that she will not speak to anybody for a period of time. Now, we keep understanding that fasting is to refrain from things that we like doing or things that we ordinarily do. Now our intention of fasting, that is very important, that we make the intention to fast. The Quran says, deeds are but intention, and every person shall be awarded according to his intention. So it is our intention that is important. There are people who intend to fast, but they cannot fast. So they are rewarded by the intention of fasting. You see, I intend to fast, but there are things that are forbidding me to fast. I am not well, or I am worried and troubled, but my intention is to fast. And so we are judged by our intention. That intention that I have, that deep intention that I have to fast, is as good as the person who did go through with the fast. See? So, as Mary said, I have vowed a fast to Allah. I will therefore not speak this day to any human being. She is fasting. She didn't say, I'm not going to eat or I'm not going to drink. She says, I have vowed the fast to Allah. I will not speak to a human being. So there, she is fasting. She's fasting from speaking to a human being. And so Allah has made it also very comfortable for many of us in the month of Ramadan. He has told us that we can feed a person every day. We can visit a sick person every day. We can eat and drink, but we can feed somebody. We can eat and drink, but we can share, we can visit sick people. We can eat and drink, we can look after children. It's all fasting. Doing things that are pleasurable in the eyes of Allah and things that we don't usually do every day. You know, I was reading about the religious situation in England and practically all over the world, you know. And it has been proven that apart from Islam, many religions are losing their congregations. I spoke last week about the relationship of children to parents and parents to children, and why we are experiencing parents saying that the children yesterday are more disciplined than the children today. And the reason for that, in my opinion, is that the parents today have spoiled the children. Allah says in the Bible, don't spare the rod and spoil the child. And this is what we have done as parents today. We have strayed away, we have compromised with our children. You see, parents cannot compromise with children. That is why we are called parents. And that's why they are children. Children and parents are not friends. Like God and the believers. The believers and God are not friends. God is God. I cannot be friends with God. How can I be friends with God? God is too big, it's too heavy. He knows all my secrets. He knows everything about me. I don't want to be friends with nobody that knows everything about me. God is who I worship. I don't worship my friends. So I cannot be a friend with God. Parents and children cannot be friends. My mother is my best friend. How will you get that? How come your mother is your best friend? Go and look somewhere for your friends. Your mother is not your friend. Your mother is your mother. Your father is not your friend. Your father is your father. And that is why God has ordained parents. And that's why God has told children, honor thy parents, be kind to thy parents, be good to your parents. And so what is happening today is that we are seeing that children are not good to their parents anymore. They use and abuse the love of their parents. And then they talk about, my mother is my best friend, my father is my best friend. And the mothers and fathers say that too. My son is my best friend, my daughter is my best friend. When you come upon that, you're compromising the position that Allah has given you. It's a position that God has given us, a responsibility that God has given us to train our children in the best way possible, to respect Him and to be a worshiper and a believer of Him. That's what we are, as parents, we have been given the responsibility to do. So from the time we start becoming friends with our children, then we cannot carry out the responsibility of our children, because if I'm my son's friend and he come and he tells me, you know, Dad, I'm using cocaine, you know, I just wanted to tell you. But it's my friend. So my friend just tell me that he's using cocaine, so I said, boy, you know, it is not good for you, you know, you should. That's how I talk to my friend. But when I talk to my son, I say, you're using cocaine, don't use it in here. In fact, you know, don't worry to come back in here, you know, so the man, and then you might have the mother, who is his friend too, might want to tell me as the father, no, you can't treat the boy like that. You know, talk nice to him, counsel him, see that, you know, see that he, you know. So it's not my friend, I am his father. And so I have a responsibility to deal with him. You know, mother goes to her daughter goes to her mother and say, you know, mommy, I'm pregnant for the guy next door. Girl, don't let your father know. Don't, if your father, this is your friend. That is her friend. You know? So that's how she's talking to her friend. Then the first thing she finds to tell her friend is, don't let your father know. So me and you, who are friends, we ain't gonna let your father know what's going on. We gonna hide it. Compromise. And it's because of the compromise that today parents are saying, our children yesterday were better behaved than the children today. Because the children yesterday, the parents never compromised with them. 90% of the parents, when you hear she go and tell her mother, Mommy, I'm pregnant for the guy next door, your father know? Well, you're going to have to tell your father.
Man create his own monster, weapons of damnation and disaster, no sign at all of human rights. Today has turned into night. Is racialism so, and segregation so? Which way is left to go? I don't know. Oh Lord, tell me, what about love thy neighbor? Tell me, what about he ain't heavy, he's my brother? Nobody cares a damn anymore. All they got on their mind is war.
These parents used to stick together. Parents used to be together, you know. Now you're going to hear, but you can't make your father know because, oh Lord, you know, we going to behave. No. My grandmother used to let my grandfather know. Whether he behave or however he behave, he ain't going to kill his child. He ain't going to kill them. He's not a murderer. But he has a responsibility to God. And so, we had children in those days who realized they couldn't come in between father and mother. There was no friendship there. You are the friend. If you want to be a friend, you got to be a friend of mommy and daddy. You can't be a friend of daddy or a friend of mommy. And so this compromise is what have got our children today behaving in this way. They are not kind to their parents anymore. You would be surprised to know that the parents years ago, even though they were strict and they never spared the rod and spoiled the child, their children were kind to them. They were good to them. You know why? Because they wanted to get into their good books. They know that mommy and daddy, you can't get in between these two people. The two of them quarrel and they argue, but you can't get in between them. When it comes to their children, they stick together, so let me treat them nice. Let us be kind to both of them, because we can't be kind to one and not to the other. And that's the situation, compromise. And today when we find that the churches are losing their congregations, that's what was brought out in a British survey, that Islam, that in the next 10 years in England, Islam will be more, 75% or 85% of the British society. And it's because I'm not critical, I'm not being critical, I'm not saying anything that's against Christianity, but they have compromised. Some of the ways that I have observed that some of the sisters go to church and the way they dress, I see it's a compromise. The behaviors in church, the things that they are allowed to do, the way they are allowed to dress, and when they are singing, some of the attitudes that they have. And that's what I believe is the reason why Christianity, for example, in the survey that is from England, why Christianity is losing quite a lot of their former congregational public. Islam hardly compromises. There's hardly a compromise in Islam. There are those who are very fanatic, which is not really the concept and the ideology of Islam, this fanatism. But we have to understand, when we see or when we hear that there has been a suicide bomber in England or a suicide bomber in America, that those are Islamic extremists, they call them. Islamic extremists that feel to themselves that because their people are being killed by the Western soldiers in their country, that they have a right to do the same thing in the West. That is why we find that we are having this kind of unfair and innocent people being blown up and killed by so-called Islamic extremists. You see, because the war is in their country. They are seeing their mothers, their children getting killed, their sisters being raped. They see these things. And so they decide to take justice into their own hands. And so they develop this whole attitude of not caring who they kill, not caring even if they kill themselves, but they are dissatisfied with the deaths and the treatment of their people in their countries. Now, the Quran does not stipulate that kind of behavior. The Quran does not do that. The Quran does not say that when there is a war in my country, that because there are Americans and Canadians and British people in this war, that I must leave and go to England and go to America and commit suicide and kill so many innocent people who are many times against their own soldiers going to war in Muslim countries. There are many of those people who have innocently died who are supportive of no war being held in the countries where Muslims live. Many of them, many British, many Americans are against the war in Afghanistan, against the war in Libya, against these things. They are against it. And so it is very sad to know that people who are for you, you still go ahead and blow up their children and kill their families. But it is not prescribed in the Quran. It is not prescribed in terms, but the law of Moses says, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. And that's what the extremists are using. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. It is very sad, brothers and sisters, especially in the month of Ramadan. And the thing is that even in the Muslim countries, for there was a mosque that was blown up in Libya last week. They're blowing up their own mosques. They're killing their own Muslim brothers and sisters. So it's chaos. But yet still, we are reading this survey in England where it is said that there are more and more people who are becoming Muslims. And it's one of the things that we realize in the teachings of Islam, not the extremist behavior of Islam, but in the teachings of Islam, we don't spare the rod and spoil the child. That's the difference. Islam and the teachings of Allah does not compromise. There is no compromise when it comes to certain things. There might be a little bit of liberalism in Islam. But when it comes to certain things like the training of our children, the treating of how you treat your wives, how wives are supposed to treat their husbands, our prayers, our behavior and attitude and how we dress, Islam doesn't compromise. The usage of drugs, the things of this life, the discotheques and the heavy kind of behavior and attitude when it comes to music, the singing on the stage or on television and you're half naked. And Islam doesn't compromise with these things. And so you find that even though there is compromise in other religions, we are finding that there are people in those religions that are not satisfied with the fact that there is compromise. Before, Christianity never used to compromise to this extent. And it was taught, and I think that our brothers and sisters in Christianity believe that if we compromise with our children, because that's who they're compromising with, the young modern type of behavior, they feel that if they compromise with their children, that they will have the children become more interested in religion, interested in churches and so on. But that is not the case. The more that the parents compromise with their children, the more they lose the respect of their children. The more the churches compromise with their children, the more they lose their children. And the discipline of Islam is what some parents are seeing. Many parents are wanting their children to go into Islam because they realize that there's a specific type of discipline that it is not being compromised, and they are not able to discipline their children because of the compromise that they have went into, and so they keep sending their children into Islam. Have you been to a funeral lately and see how they dress? And you want to know if it's a dance that they're going to. You want to know if it's a party that they are going to. The compromise of same-sex marriages. It's another compromise. Islam does not compromise in same-sex marriages. Islam does not compromise with a man marrying a man and a woman marrying a woman. It is no compromise. You see? And so we find that this compromise is what has contributed to the churches losing out their congregation, and what is bringing a lot of the now generation into Islam. Islam is rapidly growing, even though there are suicide bombers, people killing themselves and killing other innocent people, which we don't subscribe to. But even though that is happening, Islam is still growing. More people are becoming Muslims. More families want their children to come into this religion. It's because of the discipline, and that Allah does not compromise. Yeah, as I said, in this month of Ramadan, there are little things that we speak about. I was approached by a sister the other day that is insisting that I explain to her that in Islam there is a word called talaq, which means divorce. And when you are going to have a divorce, it's prescribed that a man can tell his wife 3 times, talaq, 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 and he has divorced her. You see? Then the sister said to me, but look here, it's written that before you can take your wife back again, you are permitted, if you divorce, to take her back again. She must be married and divorced, and then you can take her back again. Now, what that sister doesn't know is that Islam does prescribe that the woman must be married, and then after she divorces, you can take her back again. But that is after the 3rd time of talaq. You see, what Allah says is that when you are married and you cannot live together anymore, there are certain rules and regulations. You can't tell your wife, talaq, talaq, talaq. That's a divorce. And then you can take her back again after the divorce. And you can tell her talaq, talaq, talaq a 2nd time. Then you can take her back again. But when you tell her talaq, talaq, talaq the 3rd time, you can't take her back unless she was married and divorced. What's the reason for that? Let's look at the other religions. They get married, and then they divorce, and they come back together again, and then they separate, and then they divorce again, and it continues like that over and over. But if a woman is married and her husband divorces her because of whatever reason, she claims that her husband doesn't treat her right, he ill-treats her, he abuses her, so there is the divorce. Because the women in Islam also have got the right of divorce. So when you divorce the 1st time, because your husband is no good, and you have a time of separation, and you take him back again, you know, we have it also in the other religions, where the wife says, I'm going to give him another chance. Right? You give him another chance, and he behaves the same way again. And you decide, well, look, I have children and I want to save my marriage, so you give him a 3rd chance, and he behaves like that again. Allah says, after that, he can't take you back again unless you have married somebody else. Why? Because when you marry somebody else, then you get a chance to find out if your husband that you had before was better than this one. You see? So you get married, right? Because this husband is no good. So Allah says, well, Lord, if he's no good, marry another one. See how good he is. And if he is worse than your husband, then you have to divorce him. And then your husband is allowed, your ex-husband is allowed to take you back again. But it's not the first time. It's not when you say divorce, divorce, divorce the first time, that when you are divorced that you must go and get married and then divorced before your husband can take you back. No. We have periods in Islam. If you can't get along with your husband, then it is not prescribed that you divorce right away. It is prescribed that you have a period whereby there is a separation. And that separation period, you use it to see if there can be a reconciliation. So you have people from his side, people from your side as the wife, that try to bring you together. When you are brought together for the first time after the separation, if you can't get along again, there is still another period of separation. For Allah does not like divorces. God has instructed us to try and do whatever we can do instead of divorcing one another. Because in a divorce, children suffer, you suffer as the wife, the husband suffers regardless. Everybody suffers in a divorce. And so we have those periods. But when it reaches the point where there is a divorce, we take each other back again, and then there's a second divorce, and we still can't get along, and then we take each other back again, and then there is a third time where we divorce, then Allah says, no, you cannot take her back again until she takes somebody else. It goes both ways. You don't know how much this woman is worth. Now you treat her badly, you behave badly with her. So Allah says, okay, 2-3 times you have done that to her, so let her take somebody else. Let her see if somebody else is better than you. Let her have the experience of someone else. And then, you know, you have not been deserving to have a woman like that because you treat her bad so many times. So now she had somebody else, and that's the only time you can have her again. Let her have the experience of having someone else. Then you can have her again. There is no other religion that prescribes that. No other one. And if you're a man who has been ill-treating your wife and divorcing her and ill-treating her and divorcing her, and you know that she is a very loving woman and she takes somebody else and she's not happy with that person, and you are not happy because you realize now somebody else has this wife that you had, and you still are longing to have that woman because every other woman you try since she has left is not working out. You don't love them like you love her. And now you realize after she has taken someone else how much she means to you. Allah said you can take her back. Only then you can take her back. But you have been unfair to her because of how you treated her. Every time you divorce her, you drag her back, you abuse her, you take her back. No. Now you're not allowed to take her back anymore until she has somebody else. Let her go through. And you go through the whole agony of not having a wife, or her as a wife. It is also prescribed that if the wife is not satisfied with you, that they are a specific group within the Islamic or Muslim community that you can go to as the wife. and you can complain and ask for a divorce. And the group can decide if you should have a divorce or not. And if the group says that you can have a divorce, your husband cannot say anything about it. The group has decided. There's another aspect of divorce. Your husband can take you before the same group and declare in front of the group your infidelity. If you were an adulteress, if you went with other men, or if you used to drink and behave terrible, and so he can declare it in front of that group of people. He makes his declaration and he says and tells them what you did or what you used to do or how you behave, and that he wants his divorce. May Allah guide you to understand the truth, especially in this month of Ramadan. Assalamu alaikum.
Negotiations breaking down is a whole big runaround. A lot of talk is what goes on, while the world is left to mourn. Starvation taking toll, weapons out of control. The atmosphere is cold, so cold. Oh Lord, tell me, what about love thy neighbor? Tell me, what about he ain't heavy, he's my brother. Nobody cares a damn anymore. All they got on their mind is war, war. Tell me, what about equal rights and justice? Tell me, what about peace and happiness? Hey! They making new laws every